Well, as Brandon said, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. It's a wonderful meeting, and it's wonderful to be a part of it. It's wonderful to have the opportunity to be here with so many of like precious faith and present on a series of subjects that are so important. Moral warfare. Don't be deceived. We're involved in a war with this old world, but we've always been, haven't we? Christians have always been involved in a war, and I appreciate Brandon so much for his presentation. And we can get overwhelmed when we think about peer pressure, when we think about all of the things that go on with social media that we talked about last night, and all of the problems that can come from digital use. When we think about the transgender agenda and the homosexual agenda, it can overwhelm us. And when we think about substance abuse and some of the things I'm going to talk about tonight, it can frighten us, it can scare us, but I appreciate him so much for bringing us back to the foundation. I love what he said. It's not real complicated, it's pretty simple. We go back to biblical teaching. Well, tonight I want to talk about substance abuse in the modern world. And like I said last night, I don't pretend to be any kind of expert when it comes to substance abuse. I do have some experience with the subject, unfortunately, as probably you do. And I'm going to speak tonight from my experience. And as I said last night, I've worked in the school system for 22 years. I've been a teacher, a principal. Now I work at the district office, and I have a lot of different duties at the district office. I deal with a lot of behaviors, and I see a lot of things. One of the things that I've been doing the last couple of years, I'm chairman of our local Operation Unite coalition in our county. And that coalition was started because of the pill epidemic, particularly OxyContin in eastern Kentucky. It was devastating many of our communities, as I'm sure it did in other parts of the nation, maybe even here. And so about 20 years ago, this organization was created to bring about awareness, to try to bring about prevention methods, to help people with treatment, to collaborate with the community. It's a coalition to try to fight the drug epidemic. And I've been involved in the work of that coalition for several years, and last year I became the chairman, and that gave me a lot of experience with this subject. Again, I don't consider myself an expert, but I do want to share with you tonight some of my experience. What are our goals with this? First, my goal is to increase awareness of substance abuse. I want to talk to you about what's out there and the changing landscape. I titled this Substance Abuse in the Modern World. And when I say modern world, I'm talking about how things have changed in the last 10 years. And they've changed pretty dramatically in the drug scene. And that's what I want to focus on. I want parents to understand the changing nature of the drug scene. I want our kids here to understand some of the things that are out there so that hopefully you can fight against those. And then we're going to provide some suggestions for parents concerning substance abuse, or focused questions. I want to get your mind focused on some things this evening. First of all, how does this issue affect the church? You know, we can live in our bubble and say it doesn't affect the church, but you're blind if you don't think it affects the church. I'm not asking for a show of hands, but I want you to think, how many of us have been affected directly by substance abuse? How many moms and dads, how many kids, how many aunts and uncles and cousins and family members, and maybe even us as individuals, have been affected by substance abuse? It's an issue that can destroy a soul, a family, a church. I want to talk to you about how the drug scene has changed, as I mentioned, in the last 10 years. I want to talk to you about why you should be concerned about substance abuse. And I want to talk to you about what you can do to help protect your children from substance abuse, and how you should respond if your child is using or experimenting with addictive substance. First of all, I want to just begin with a basic definition of substance abuse. What is that? Might use that phrase a lot. What does that mean? Well, it's overindulgence in or dependence on an addictive substance, especially alcohol or drugs. It can be anything, but when we say substance abuse, typically we think about drugs. But it can be tobacco, definitely can include alcohol, it can include a lot of things. So that's what I'm talking about tonight when I say substance abuse. How does it affect the church? Again, how many of us have been directly affected by this? Just like I said last night, Don't be naive when it comes to what your children do with social media or with your cell phone. Don't be naive to this topic. Don't think my child would never experiment with that. Don't even think I couldn't ever get caught up in something like that. That's pride talking. It's a choice, as Brandon said, without a doubt. But don't think you can't be tempted and get caught in something that's over your head that you never thought you could. Addiction in any form is wrong. We know that as Christians. We know we're to have self-control. Paul said, I discipline my body and I bring it into subjection lest I should be a castaway. He said, I bring every thought into subjection. Why? Because we're to be in control of ourselves. We're to be in control of what we think, because obviously that leads to what we do. And so everything that we do, we have to have self-control and think about why we're doing something or what we might be tempted to do for this reason or for another reason. There's a lot of people that have got addicted to substances for very innocent reasons. Maybe even a doctor prescribed a substance. Maybe it started with something simple that you buy at a gas station that you think might provide some relief, and it starts in an innocent way, but it escalates and it escalates, and before you know it, you're a slave to it, whatever that it is. We're to be sober, aren't we? We're to be sober. Peter said, be sober, be vigilant. Why? Because the devil's out to get you no matter what. And if you're in an altered state of mind, oh, you're easy prey, aren't you? I used to teach criminal justice. And I would share with my students in high school about 70 to 80% of crimes are committed when people are high or drunk. You know why? Because they got to have a little courage. My mom was robbed twice at gunpoint as a bank teller. Twice. Both times the person was high. Be sober. Be in control of yourself at all times. And don't be tempted for an addictive substance. Be not drunk with wine, Paul would say to the Ephesians, in which is dissipation, but be filled with the Spirit. That's the admonition. Be spiritually minded, just like the question we asked last night. How is the digital world affecting your spirituality? Is it making you more spiritual? That's what we should ask when we think about substances, when we think about where we're at with those things. How's the drug scene changed in the past 10 years? Well, the current environment of substance abuse is not like it used to be. You know, we have a tendency to think, I know I have a tendency to think, well, you know, things are like they were when I was in high school. You know, I don't think I'm that old, but the mid-90s was I graduated in 97, what was that, 27 years ago? Been a little while. Nick said, as always, Dad, you sound like an old man. And I think we have that tendency to think, well, it's like it was when I was in school. We just naturally go back to that. We try to relate. We think back to those days, and we think what our kids are facing. Kids haven't changed. Kids haven't changed. But the drug scene has definitely changed. And in the past, tobacco, alcohol, marijuana, you know, I remember hearing about those things. I remember seeing people using those things. Marijuana wasn't very common. There were some people that used it when I was younger. I don't remember seeing very many pills around, people abusing pills when I was younger. Saw a lot of people experimenting and using alcohol and definitely tobacco. But that's my experience. Don't think today is like it was when you were younger. We've got to change the way that we think because drugs have changed. Today the gateway is broader. These are gateway drugs, there's no doubt about it. But the gateway is much broader. It's no longer just tobacco, alcohol, and pot. The supply is so much more prevalent. I can't even begin to describe to you how the supply has changed. You can go to about any gas station here in Lawrence County and get things that'll make you high. I guarantee it. And if not that, you can order it on the internet. And they'll ship it right to your homes. You may say, we got laws against that. We might have laws against it, but they're very rarely used to prosecute people. There's fake pills. There's an epidemic of that. We can obtain these things, people can, anywhere that they want to. Regulations today on a lot of these products are non-existent. I'm going to show you why in just a second. It truly is the Wild West with a lot of these products. And the acceptance of drug use today is so much different than it was just years ago. Today, if you say, I know this from experience, today, if you say marijuana is bad for you, you get attacked. That's the worst thing in the world you can say to people out in the world. Why? Because marijuana is medicine, isn't it? That's what they tell us. It's medicine. It's good for you. It heals all kinds of ailments. Just this past week, just Tuesday, our county, let me back up, our state passed a medical marijuana bill back in April. Listen, you can't go to a doctor and then prescribe you marijuana. That's not how it works. There's no doctor in the United States of America that can prescribe marijuana. Do you know that? They can't. That's a misnomer. In Kentucky now, if you've got about 20 ailments, including back pain and anxiety, you can get a petition for a little card. Now, your doctor might write you a statement about your back pain, and you can petition the state of Kentucky, and you can get a little medical marijuana card. And you can go to a dispensary, and you can buy a full-blown pot. And just this week, our county, our fiscal court had a vote on that. Thankfully, they voted down a dispensary in our county. But what's the agenda? To normalize this product. To make it sound like it's good for you. It can heal you. It's medicine. Don't buy in to that foolishness. It's all over society. Again, you say marijuana is bad for you, people will laugh at you. And then the pill epidemic, the prescription pill epidemic that we have in the society. If we have a problem, quick fix, take a pill. That's the mentality of many, many people. And that's unfortunate. Again, when we think about how the drug scene has changed and why you should be concerned, these are some things I'm going to go through very quickly. Access has increased. I'm going to talk very, very briefly about vapes. I'm going to talk to you about the Farm Bill and how that changed things. I'm going to talk to you about some gas station dope, as they call it. I'm going to camp out on vapes, in particular THC vapes, and then talk a little bit about fake pills from China and Mexico and how those things can affect us. First of all, I want to talk to you about this little device right here, this vape. This is how the drug scene has changed in the last 10 years. In 2003, a patent was obtained for this device to assist people in quitting smoking. And it was promoted as a product that was good for you to help you stop tobacco addiction and lead you down a life free from tobacco use. And it gained acceptance fairly quickly. And people promoted it as though it's just water vapor. It can't hurt you, it's just water vapor. Well, it's not just water vapor. When we look at a vape, I want you to understand how they work. You may know more about this than I do, but they have three basic elements. They have a battery to provide heat, they have a metal heating element, and they have a liquid solution. All vapes, there's different kinds, there's a lot of different kinds, but all of them have those three elements. Now the e-liquid is what is the vapor. That's what you absorb into your lungs when you push a button and inhale from that device. These are the liquid solutions that are contained in electronic cigarettes or vapes or whatever you want to call them, and they contain the same basic elements: alcohol-based solvents, propylene glycol and vegetable glycerin, flavorings, and typically, though not exclusively, nicotine. E-liquids are relatively simple mixtures. They form an aerosol that's heated up that you ingest into your lungs. Now, what can be wrong with that? Well, this device is dangerous. It can't be good for you. It's not good for you. An FDA review of 800 studies on e-cigarettes found these three facts. E-cigs increase airborne concentration of particulate matter and nicotine indoors. All that's going into your lungs. Exposure to nicotine from e-cigs is highly variable depending on the device and how operated. There's no exact dosage amount with a vape. You might ingest more, you might ingest less. Most e-cigs or vapes contain and emit numerous potentially dangerous substances, and you can see there's different kinds of vapes. That's a mod, that's an e-cigarette there on the left. But this is what's changed the drug scene over the last few years. And most vapes today contain nicotine. Most do. But that's quickly changing, and it's changing because of what happened in 2018. The marijuana lobby in 2018 encouraged the federal government to pass the Farm Bill. They passed the Farm Bill every few years. That's a typical part of what our government does to assist farmers, to provide subsidies. It's a good thing. They're getting ready to pass another one right now. Well, in 2018, the idea of making hemp legal became very popular. We can grow hemp. We can use hemp for rope. We can use hemp to make clothes. It can be a great agricultural product. Now, this was 6 years ago. How much you hear about hemp today? It was just a ploy to, again, allow people to get used to the idea of marijuana. Hemp and marijuana are the same plant. It's the cannabis plant. There's no difference in those plants. The difference is the level of THC that's contained within each plant. The THC is what makes you high. So what they did with the Farm Bill is they prohibited any plant with more than 0.3 THC within that plant. So it made legal anything under 0.3 THC. You ever heard of CBD? You ever see CBD advertised? You know what CBD is? That's called cannabis-based derivatives. And CBD is what was made legal by this Farm Bill. It's a cannabis-based derivative that has less than 0.3 THC. It's not supposed to make you high. It's supposed to avoid that possibility. But the Farm Bill, again, created these products that were Delta 8. And you can buy Delta 8 products at any gas station, I guarantee you, here in Lawrence County. You can buy Delta 8 gummies and edibles anywhere almost in America. Now, this was from a couple years ago, and I know you can't see this, but I'm going to read this. It says, Poison Control Centers handled almost 2,400 Delta 8 cases in a 14th-month period. This was a couple years ago. Delta 8 is chemically known as, I'm not going to read all that, it's a psychoactive cannabinoid found in the cannabis plant, the marijuana or hemp plant. It is a compound of Delta 9 THC. Delta 9 is not regulated by the FDA and therefore is not tested for safety or quality. It's thought to contain other harmful chemicals and metals. You can't be sure of the dose you're getting either. Side effects of Delta 8 include confusion, anxiety, drowsiness, dizziness, slow heart rate, fast heart rate, so on, so forth. Delta 8's what's legal. Anything that's Delta 9 is supposed to be illegal. Now, I didn't bring this, I should have brought this slide up, but there is a map of all of the kids that were taken to emergency rooms in the United States because of Delta 8, because they either smoked that through a vape or they ingested Delta 8 and they had a reaction to it and were sent to an emergency room. And it's alarming when you look at that map. So what's Delta 9? Delta 9 is what produces the high in marijuana. It is THC. And because of the legalization of recreational marijuana in many states, big business now produces marijuana and grows high-quality marijuana with increasing amounts of THC in the cannabis chart. I'm going to show you that in just a second. The bottom line of the 2018 Farm Bill is that it increased and it created, to a large extent, synthetic marijuana. So if you don't get anything else, just realize that. It created, I might be confusing you with the Delta 8s and Delta 9s, but what the Farm Bill did is basically legalize synthetic marijuana. That's what's becoming more popular. That's what you're seeing today in a lot of vapes. It's not grown from the cannabis plant, but the THC is produced in a lab. They change the chemical makeup of the THC by one molecule so it won't test illegal over the 0.3 threshold. Let me illustrate it this way. About 3 years ago in Kentucky, there was a gas station that was selling Delta 8 and Delta 9 THC products. So the state police went in, they raided the place, they took all of the products that they had, they arrested the owner, and it went to trial. When they tested the products, they realized at the Kentucky State Police lab, they realized that this was 0.3 THC, and they were confused. How could this be? And it was because they were changing one compound in all of those products to make it legal with the synthetic marijuana, to make it under the threshold, but they were selling it legal. And so what happened? The person was acquitted. They had to return all the product that they got. They had to return all the money, and then he turned around and sued the government officials who prosecuted him. The owner did. And so now at least in my state, there's not very much prosecution in selling these things. That's why you can buy them in a lot of these places. They don't test illegal, but they'll make you high just like smoking a marijuana joint. That's how they sell those things. Again, there's no regulation with this. On our way down here in Columbia, I saw an advertisement for a shop. And it was a CBD shop, and it had said hemp products, but it had under there, it had Delta 8, Delta 9, it had Kratom. Kratom is what's known as gas station heroin or dope. You can buy it at almost anywhere. It's a herbal supplement, and the effect of it is similar to opioid use. I want to show you this chart as well. This is the percentage of THC and CBD in cannabis samples that were seized by the DEA from 1995 to 2021. Now, if you look again back when I was in high school, a long time ago, in 1995, the percentage, I want you to notice the red line, the percentage of THC that was in your average marijuana cigarette was 4%. Remember, THC is what makes you high. It was 4%. That's average. If you look at this today, this was in 2021. I know you probably can't see that over there, but the average THC content today in marijuana samples is 15. It's a different product than it was even a few years ago. There's a lot of reasons for that. A lot of states have passed recreational marijuana use, and so now big businesses got involved. They have genetically modified the plant itself to produce more THC. And then, of course, with the synthetic marijuana coming on the scene, there's more and more and more THC in all of these products. It's not your mom or dad's joint. It contains more and more THC. And that's why when kids hit these things, sometimes they have seizures. Because if they are smoking pot, it might be a joint that has 10% THC, and they hit a vape that they don't realize has 70% THC or 50% THC, and their body can't handle it, and they have a seizure. We had that happen at my high school last year. Kid had a THC vape, passing it around. Little girl had to leave by ambulance. We took her to the hospital. It was a scary day, and it was a THC vape that she hit that day. Why should you be concerned? These things are kid friendly. Again, if you go to the gas station and look at these products, I encourage you to do that. You need to be aware of what's available. What will you see? You'll see products that are marketed to kids. You'll see flavors, grape, cherry, donut. You'll see colorful packaging. You'll see products that are produced to simulate other products so that they're easy to be concealed. Now, what I've got up there, that chart, that's from the FDA. That was a warning that was sent to educators just a little while back. All of the products that you see on the left are e-cigarettes or vapes. All the products that you see on the right are your normal products. For instance, look at the milk carton. That's a vape. Now, what's the purpose of that? Obviously, to conceal. That vape probably has a pod where you can plug it in there and you can vape that. What's in that pod? What's in that e-liquid? It might be nicotine. Yes, it might be. But you know what a lot of drug users do now? They take that pod to make their own mix and they put it in there. It can be laced with whatever in the world. The whole purpose of this is kid-friendly so kids can conceal it. They make a vape now. It's a hoodie. It's a sweatshirt. I've seen one of these. And the little aglet, you put the aglet in your mouth. That's where you take your hit. And then they blow it in their hoodie. And the shirt itself is a vape. It's scary what all is out there and available. Now, I asked John if I could do this before obviously I brought these products, but I'm going to show you some products that we've confiscated at my school. This product was confiscated about 2 months ago at our high school. Donuts. It's blueberry frosting. Well, look at that. This is a THC vape, and it says 21 plus on here. But if you took a hit off that right now, it would make you incredibly high. This is another product, a similar, and it's grape jelly, another little product. This one is it's marketed as pom pom berry. This little product is, and this is a THC vape. And this is what the kids call a dab. You ever heard that language before? This is wax, THC synthetic marijuana in here, and this would make you incredibly high. high. I had a parent call me about 2 years ago and told me that her child had bought a product at one of our local gas stations, and I really didn't believe her. She told me it was marijuana, and I thought, you can't buy marijuana in our county, in our area. And she told me what it was. And so I thought, I'm going to go check this out for myself. And so one night, late at night, I put on a t-shirt, had Danielle drive me up to the gas station. I kind of messed my hair up, tried to act cool. And I went into the shop. Guy didn't know me. I said, hey man, you got any CBD in here? He said, you want THC? I said, yeah. What you got? Y'all, he took me behind the counter and he had all kinds of products. And that mother told me what the child bought. She said it's called Flying Monkey. And this is what it was right here. I'm confessing my sins. I bought it. And this is not a vape. This is basically a marijuana cigarette. It says Delta 8 on it, but this is what caused her child to have a seizure and be taken to the emergency room in our little town. And don't think your little town's different. It's the same. What's my point? My point is you should be concerned. You need to know that these things are out there. And you also need to know that the vape is the modern vehicle for all drug use. It is. It's the modern vehicle. Yes, people use vape for nicotine, but let me tell you, they use vapes for THC, and because that synthetic marijuana, that is becoming incredible. I've got a sack full of these things right here that we confiscated at our high school, and I'm sure your administrators here in this county, I'm sure Aaron tell you the same thing. It's epidemic. And don't think it's just in the schools either. I know many of you homeschool. These products are in our workplaces. They're all over the place, and they're easily accessible. You can smoke meth through a vape. You can smoke heroin through a vape. You can even have a vape that's laced with fentanyl, which is a dangerous opioid that kills hundreds of thousands of people in the United States. Why are they so popular? Why is this the modern vehicle for drug use? Well, there's several reasons. First, there's no smell. It dissipates very quickly with a vape. I told you last night we had vape detectors in our high school. There's ways around those, but it's hard to catch them. It's not like a cigarette where you could smell, or even a marijuana cigarette where you can smell that. It dissipates very quickly. And it's like a cherry smell or some other kind of smell. It's hard to detect. And you know, it's not drug paraphernalia. Police pulls you over. Oh, well, this is just my nicotine vape, officer. It's not drug paraphernalia. It's not like the old needle and spoon crack pipe like back in the day. That's why I'm telling you, things are changing quickly. It's easy to disguise. It's easy to manipulate. You can put a liquid, you can put the wax, the dab, the pod, the cartridge, you can change it out. Now, not everyone who vapes is on hard drugs. I'm not saying that. But nicotine vapes are still the most popular. But the danger is if you vape something you don't know and it's mixed with a harder substance, it can kill you. This is a chart of the percentage of the past month high school marijuana users in Colorado who vaporized it. Now, Colorado's ahead of everybody because they were the first to pass medicinal. Maybe the second. I think California might have been the first. But they were the first to pass full recreation. So they know all about this problem. And they're well advanced in this issue with everybody else. And so what are their seniors doing? If you look at the chart, 41% of the seniors in 2021 in Colorado, they smoked their marijuana through a vape, through synthetic means. That's going to become the norm. It's going to surpass an old-fashioned joint. If we look at daily or near daily marijuana usage, it's increased by 1,867% from 1992 to 2002, and it's past daily alcohol users. More people smoke pot either every day or nearly every day than drink alcohol in this country right now. You can see in 2022, the pot users passed up the marijuana or the alcohol users. It's all wrong, it's all sin, it's all evil. But that's the changing landscape of the world. A lot of that is synthetics. Synthetic marijuana. Cannabis is more harmful than alcohol for teen brains. Do you realize that? For growing and developing brains. There's all kinds of evidence that marijuana is particularly harmful for adolescents. First of all, this dose. Now, how much are you smoking? It's a lot more than ever was before, because the THC content is constantly changing. You know what it does? We talked about how dopamine and how it changes your brain because you like certain things. That's what drug use does. And it causes abnormalities in brain structure and function. And the strongest impact is on thinking skills, in particular for young people who start using this product at a young age. We look at them and we say, that person's a stoner, don't we? Why? Because you can tell. Their mind, their brain has been muted by the use of these drugs. Memory, motivation, and those effects are stronger than alcohol, and the effects remain. I'm not saying alcohol, obviously it's evil and sinful too. But don't think pot is okay. It's not the cannabis of yesterday, for sure. Why should you be concerned? Well, there's an epidemic also of fake pills in the United States from Mexico and China. You can mail order them. And sometimes they contain fentanyl. I want to show you this. This is a Google search that I did for a pill press machine. Now, what's a pill press machine? You know what that is? That's where you can make your own pills. There were a ton of things that popped up when I searched for that. And if you look in the top corner, it says Firmapress pill mixed powder for tablet press machines. You can buy it anywhere from $7 to $249. If you really want to get fancy, there's one for $900. Now, why am I showing you that? You know why I'm showing you that? Why are these things so popular? Why are they so easy to get? Because people are making their own pills. And kids are buying these pills from the internet and from other people. And they're taking them, and sometimes they're dying. It's scary what we're facing and what the potential is. And if you look at overdose deaths in the United States, look at this chart. Look how it's increased dramatically since just the year 2000. We know it. We hear about it, don't we, all the time? About overdoses for various reasons. Quickly, what can you as parents do to protect your children? The number one thing that impacts early adolescent alcohol use. Now, this says alcohol use, but it's everything. You know what? It's access. Access. Do they have access to these products? That's a question that parents have to answer. When they go over to little Johnny's house, Aaron talked about that. Brandon talked about that. When they stay all night with their friends, what's going on in that home? What do they have in that home? What can you do to protect your children from substance abuse? Well, as we said time and time again, it's fairly simple. Like we talked about last night with digital use, set the example. What do you do as parents? One thing that you must do is be proactive. You know, we can either be proactive or we can be reactive. Everything that Brandon talked about in terms of teaching our children biblical principles, sitting down with them. You know what that is? That's being proactive. That's trying to build this spiritual foundation within our children that they avoid all of these topics. Be proactive. Ask about their friends. Same scripture. Don't be deceived. Evil company corrupts good habits. Who are their friends? Who are they hanging around with? Ask them, what do you know about this subject? Do you know anything about these products, about this subject? Always be open to communicating about these topics. And don't hide behind family problems. We don't like to talk about family substance abuse problems. We're going to sweep that under the rug, or what may be a problem. Don't hide behind that. Your kids, be real with them. As Brandon said, be real with them about Uncle Joe and what's going on with him and how his life's a wreck and why his life might be a wreck, or so and what led them down that path. Monitor. Know where they go, who they go with. Know what's on their phones. Be clear about your rules. How should you respond if your child's experimenting with a substance? Well, as Brandon said, my temptation would be to yell. But the context with every one of these situations matters. As he said, the best thing to do is ask questions. What substance did you discover them using? Your response is going to be determined partially based upon that. How old's your child? Are they 13 or are they 18? If they're 18, it's a little bit different response than if they're 13. How did you discover their use? Did you find something? Did someone tell you something? And then when you talk to your child, do they admit to use? Were they deceitful? Were they defensive? Were they remorseful? All of that matters. If they're defensive, why? If they're deceitful, the problem is probably a lot worse than anybody wants to admit. Where did they obtain the item? If it's from a store, I'd be taking that child to that store and I'd be talking to that manager and probably some other people. If it was from a friend, I'd be calling that friend's parents to talk to them about what you discovered. If it was the school, call the school. Call me. I want to know. If it's in my school, believe me, I want to know. And I want to address it. And your school does too. What's the extent of use? Is it one-time experimentation or is it an addiction? As a parent, those are questions that are important that you need to consider. And then how do you respond? Well, your relationship is the most important component of solving any problem. As Brandon mentioned again, Ephesians 6, train and correct. They need to understand, if they're a Christian, what the Bible teaches about sin. And how Romans 6 talks about that we're to be a servant of righteousness and not a slave to sin. Teach them, as he mentioned, those basic biblical principles. We know our children will make mistakes. We've got to use it as an opportunity to grow. We do at some point have to try our very best to reestablish trust, and we've got to ask them questions. Why do you think this was okay? How did you get started down this path? How did you think we would react? And then, of course, there's got to be consequences. You're the parent. You've got to be the parent. As always, as we talked about last night. And maybe it is time for a different friend group. Maybe you saw that a little bit too late. But it's time for a different friend group. It's time for increased monitoring. It's time to lose privileges. Whether that's driving, whether that's phone, whatever that might be, you trust, but you monitor and you verify to see if they're telling the truth. Here's some sources. I mentioned this last night. I want to mention this again. This booklet is a wonderful booklet. There's subjects in here that we give all of our parents. There's all kinds of subjects related to substance abuse, to pornography. We hand this to all of our parents that enter the 6th grade, and it's a wonderful little booklet with a lot of resources. I thank you again for your time this evening. I had one question on my seat that says, Joe Rogan has said a lot on his podcast downplaying the popular belief that marijuana is a gateway drug. He claims that this was an unfounded opinion that has been circulated without evidence. Can you explain what a gateway drug is and defend your statement that marijuana is a gateway drug? So a gateway drug obviously is a drug that leads to other drug use. It's something that opens the door, we might say, to a more dangerous drug. For instance, people that use marijuana regularly might at some point in time be exposed to a harder drug like heroin or like meth or some other type of drug that's a harder drug that maybe is a more addictive substance. And it's certainly true that everyone that smokes pot, they don't smoke meth, they don't smoke heroin or do other drugs. It doesn't always lead to that. But there is no doubt about it that marijuana use, despite what Joe Rogan says, there is no doubt about it that marijuana use does lead to other drug use. I'd ask this question. Here's the question I'd ask. How many addicts haven't smoked pot? I'd say not very many. Now, there are people that are addicts that became addicts maybe because of a pill that a doctor prescribed, and those are special circumstances on their own. But I think if you look at most hardcore addicts, you think about the heroin users, the meth users, hardcore drugs, you're telling me they've never smoked pot? Come on. I mean, that's contrary to what we know. Why does that happen? Why does that happen? Why is marijuana a gateway drug? I think there's a lot of reasons for that. I think it begins with the culture of people that you're around. Who are you associating with? You're associating with people that want to get high. You're associating with people that don't want to be sober. And so you get in that culture, and there's natural experimentation within that culture. And it's certainly true that within that culture, you are exposed to drug dealers and others that are going to try to get you addicted to more substances that are more addictive. There's no doubt about that. But it also, I think there's no doubt about it, whenever you use any drug for any period of time, that high becomes harder to obtain. If you're drinking alcohol, you might get drunk on 3 beers. Well, after a while, 3 beers isn't going to get you to that point where you're in an altered state of mind. You might have to drink 6. You might have to drink a case to get you to that point where you feel a buzz. The same with marijuana. We talked about the THC content. If you smoke a joint with THC content of this or that, after a while, you might want a more intense high. I think that's natural if you're in that state of mind, and that is absolutely why I think that it is a gateway drug. And there's a worldly acceptance of the drug culture. We know that, and that's increasing, and hopefully the point I made is clear about the fact that the worldly perception of this drug is being minimized, or the dangers of that's being minimized. And I hope that's never the case within the church.
If you like this sermon, do 3 things for me. Give it a thumbs up below, click the subscribe button, and share it with a friend either on social media or text. This helps the channel grow. It helps the word get out there. It's something really easy that you can do to affect the spreading of the gospel. This has been the Chapel Grove Church of Christ. Visit our website at chapelgrovechurch.com. We'll see you next time.